Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're heading back, way back to ancient Egypt, but maybe not in the way you'd first expect.
That's right, because when you think Pharaoh's tomb, your mind probably jumps straight to, well, the huge pyramids at Giza, doesn't it?
Exactly, those iconic stone giants. But for centuries before those, even the most powerful kings, the pharaohs, they rested in tombs that were, well, quite different.
Yeah, impressive for their time, sure, but we're talking mostly mud brick structures, mastabas. They were vulnerable, to the desert time.
Relatively humble, really, compared to what came later. Flat-topped, rectangular.
Barely 20 feet high sometimes, just not designed to defy eternity in the same way.
And then everything shifts. A king comes along, Djoser, with this vision that was just audacious, totally groundbreaking.
It didn't just tweak tradition, it absolutely shattered it. It redefined architecture in Egypt, maybe even the world.
And that's what we're diving into today. The story of Djoser, this visionary king, and the masterpiece he commissioned, the Step Pyramid.
Right. This wasn't just another tomb. It was the first massive stone building, a true stone giant that completely changed Egypt's landscape. Forever.
So our mission here is to explore Djoser's reign, which was pretty ambitious, look at the genius behind this incredible structure, and unpack its lasting impact.
Exactly. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of how it was built, why it was built, and what it all meant.
Okay, so let's set the scene a bit. Where and when are we?
We're in Egypt around 2670 BCE, give or take. Djoser is stepping up as the first king of the Third Dynasty.
Now, I know there's sometimes mention of a King Senat maybe ruling briefly before him.
There is, yes, some debate among historians, but Djoser's reign, that's much more certain. We have solid archaeological evidence. And he ruled for a good while, over 20 years, maybe even closer to 30.
And his name, Netjerekit. That means divine of body, right? But we know him as Djoser.
We do. And Djoser likely comes from the Djed symbol, the symbol of stability, like Osiris's backbone. It really signals permanence, endurance. Quite fitting, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. So he inherits the throne from his father, Khasekhemwy, the last king of the Second Dynasty. We know a bit about his family.
A little. His mother was Queen Nemuthap. His wife, Hetepernepti, was probably his half-sister. And interestingly, unlike many pharaohs later on, it seems he only had one wife.
And right from the get-go, he wasn't messing around. He starts commissioning building projects almost immediately.
Instantly. This wasn't just about ruling, it was about building. He kicks off this incredible age of architectural monuments, but also big agricultural developments, expanding trade.
More cities popping up, grander cities.
Exactly. It feels like a real boom time for Egypt, a period of intense growth culturally, too.
And a lot of this expansion, this ambition, it seems tied to securing the kingdom, too.
Absolutely. It wasn't just about looking impressive. Djoser was actively securing and expanding Egypt's borders. We know about military campaigns into Sinai, defeating Libyan tribes.
Annexing new lands, bringing stability.
Right. And you have to remember, in their worldview, these military successes weren't just political wins. They were seen as a sign, a very clear sign of the god's favor.
So it brought huge honor to Djoser, and by extension, to all of Egypt.
Precisely. Which connects to this really fascinating story about him, the famine deal.
Ah, yes, tell us about that. It wasn't actually written during his time, was it?
No, that's the interesting part. It's from the Ptolemaic dynasty, almost 2,000 years after Djoser lived, but it tells you so much about his lasting reputation.
So what's the story?
It describes this terrible 7-year famine hitting Egypt, just devastating, and Djoser, desperate, has this dream.
Okay.
In the dream, the god Khnum appears. He's the god believed to control the source of the Nile River, and Khnum complains that his temple, way down south on Elephantine Island, has fallen into disrepair. People aren't respecting him.
So the source of life, the Nile, is drying up because its god feels neglected. Makes sense in their cosmology.
Right. So Djoser wakes up, consults his top advisors, including his vizier, the brilliant Imhotep, who we'll definitely talk more about, and a governor named Medir.
And they tell him what? Go fix the temple.
Basically, yeah. Sail to Elephantine, pay respects, rebuild the temple. Djoser does exactly that, commissions a new temple for Khnum, and lo and behold, the famine ends. The Nile floods return.
Wow. So whether that's literal history or, a legend built up over time.
Exactly. Its existence is the key thing. You don't generate a powerful, heroic narrative like that about a king nobody respected or remembered fondly.
Right. It shows the incredible esteem he was held in centuries later. seen as this heroic figure, blessed by the gods, who could literally save Egypt.
It cements his legacy. And that deep respect, that sense of divine connection, it really sets the stage for the kind of monumental project he's about to undertake.
Which brings us squarely to the man who made it possible, Imhotep.
Ah, Imhotep, what a figure. Djoser's vizier, yes, but calling him just an architect is like calling Leonardo da Vinci just a painter.
He was much more a polymath,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely. A brilliant physician, a highly revered priest, a master strategist. He's genuinely one of history's first known named geniuses. We see his titles.
Like overseer of sculptors and painters.
Right. And later historians, like Manetho, explicitly called him the inventor of building in stone.
That's huge. And the Greeks later identified him with their own god of medicine, Asclepius.
They did. His reputation just echoed down through the ages, a truly remarkable individual.
So let's talk about his big idea. Before him, you have these mud brick mastabas, flat tops, maybe 20 feet high, prone to erosion.
Pretty standard, really. Functional, but not awe-inspiring in the way we think of pyramids.
So what was Imhotep's revolutionary concept? How did he make that leap?
It was a conceptual jump, really, not just building bigger with mud brick, but thinking differently. He looked at the basic mastaba shape and envisioned stacking them, a series of progressively smaller mastabas, one on top of the other, creating this stepped effect.
The step pyramid.
Exactly. It sounds simple now, maybe, but it was utterly revolutionary. It was the birth of monumental stone architecture as we know it in Egypt.
Because this meant working with stone on a massive scale for the first time.
For the very first time on this scale. Think about it. They needed entirely new techniques for quarrying huge blocks of limestone.
Right, just getting the stone out of the ground.
But then figuring out how to transport these massive blocks, probably weighing many tons each, and then the actual construction strategies, lifting them into place. It was a whole new world of engineering.
He basically had to invent large-scale stone construction.
Pretty much. He invented the stone giant.
So let's visualize this process. It wasn't like they just built the final version straight off. It evolved, right?
It did. It went through several phases. It started as a fairly standard but large square mastaba. Stone case, which was already an upgrade, we call it M1, about 63 meters square, maybe 8 meters high.
Okay, so bigger than usual and stone-faced, but still fundamentally a mastaba.
Correct. Then they added a second casing, M2, making it bigger, about 71.5 meters square.
Still flat-topped.
Still flat-topped at this stage. Then came M3. They extended it eastward, making it rectangular, about 71.5 by 79.5 meters. This extension covered up a series of 11 deep shafts, probably for burying other royal family members.
Ah, okay, so it's growing, becoming more complex. And then came the big change.
Then came the leap, phase P1. This is where Imhotep's vision takes over. They transform the rectangular mastaba into a 4-step pyramid. Suddenly it's soaring upwards, about 42 meters high.
Wow, that must have looked completely alien compared to anything before it.
Absolutely. And they weren't done. They expanded it again, first P1 prime, then P2, adding more height and width until it reached its final form, 6 steps.
And the final dimensions are just staggering for that era.
They really are. Over 62 meters high, that's like 205 feet. The base is huge. Roughly 109 by 121 meters. The sheer volume of stone is immense, over 330,000 cubic meters.
It wasn't just bigger, it was a completely different kind of building, a statement.
A massive statement. And the technology they developed to do it was just as impressive.
Like how they built it. You mentioned working with stone.
Yeah, shaping, transporting, and assembling these vast quantities of limestone blocks. They used a technique called inclined accretion layers.
Accretion layers? What's that?
Instead of laying stones in flat, horizontal beds like you might expect, they built the core in layers that sloped inwards, leaning against each other. About 2-3 meters thick, these layers.
Ah, so leaning inwards for stability.
Exactly. It was a major innovation, much more stable for building high than the old methods, a real structural breakthrough.
And the details, the craftsmanship.
Oh, incredible. Imhotep's team were masters. They started creating architectural elements in stone that deliberately mimicked older, more organic materials.
Like what?
Like fluted columns, beautifully carved to look like bundles of reeds tied together, or intricate stone ceilings that were designed to look just like ceilings made of wooden logs. It's like they were translating familiar forms into this new, permanent medium.
That's fascinating. Paying homage to the past while building the future.
And the precision. Cutting and fitting thousands of tons of limestone blocks so perfectly they didn't even need mortar to hold them together. It's just mind-boggling.
No wonder later Egyptians called Djoser the opener of stone.
It perfectly captures his pioneering role, enabled by Imhotep's genius. They literally opened the door to the age of stone monuments.
And where did all this stone come from? Did they have to haul it far?
A lot of it, probably most of the core material, seems to have been quarried right there on site from digging that huge trench around the complex we'll talk about later. Saved a lot of transport effort for the bulk fill.
Smart. And getting those heavy blocks up high? Ramps.
Ramps are the widely accepted theory, yes. Probably earthen or mud brick ramps, perhaps combined with rollers or levers for maneuvering the really heavy pieces. The exact methods are still debated, but ramps seem most likely.
Okay, so the pyramid itself is awe-inspiring. But then there's what's underneath it.
Oh, yes. The subterranean world of the step pyramid is almost as incredible as the structure above ground.
You said nearly 6 kilometers of tunnels.
Almost 6 kilometers,
Right.
an absolute labyrinth of tunnels, shafts, and chambers carved out of the bedrock beneath the pyramid. It's a staggering feat of underground engineering.
What was down there?
It all centers around a main shaft directly under the pyramid's center, 7-meter square, plunging down 28 meters deep.
And the king's burial chamber.
Tucked away down there, yes. Lined with granite, a very hard, prestigious stone. It was sealed with a massive granite plug weighing about 3.5 tons.
Heavy-duty security. Did it work?
Sadly, no. Despite all the precautions, ancient tomb robbers still managed to get in. Djoser's mummy was plundered, most of the grave goods stolen.
Oh, that's tragic. Anything left?
Very little. Archaeologists found fragments, parts of his mummified foot, actually, and a few valuable items the robbers overlooked or dropped, but the main treasure was gone.
So besides the king's burial, what else were those tunnels and chambers for? You mentioned family earlier.
Yes, some shafts seem intended for other royal family members, but a huge part of the space was for storage. Incredible amounts of storage.
Storing what?
Get this. Over 40,000 stone vessels. Jars, bowls, plates, made from various types of stone, like alabaster, diorite, schist.
40,000. Why so many?
They were thought to be for his needs in the afterlife. Food, drink, oils, unguents, everything he'd require for eternity. It catered to his visceral needs, as Egyptologists put it.
Wow. And interestingly, many of those vessels were actually older than Djoser's time, weren't they? Heirlooms, maybe?
Yes, many predated him, some by centuries, inherited royal property perhaps, gathered together to provision him for the afterlife. A fascinating collection in itself.
And the decoration down there, you mentioned tiles.
Oh, the details are stunning. Some passages are lined with thousands of beautiful blue faience tiles.
Faience, that's like a glassy ceramic.
Exactly, glazed ceramic. And these tiles were arranged to mimic the appearance of reed matting, like the decorative wall hangings you'd find in elite houses or palaces at the time.
So replicating the earthly world in this eternal underground space.
Precisely. And you also find these amazing palace facade panels carved into the limestone walls, mimicking the niched exterior of early royal palaces. And on some walls, stunning low-relief carvings of Djoser himself,
Doing what?
participating in rituals, specifically the Hebsed festival.
Ah, the Hebsed, that royal jubilee, the renewal ceremony, usually after 30 years of rule.
That's the one, a ritual renewal of the king's power and vitality. So here you have these incredibly detailed, finely carved scenes of the king performing this crucial ritual.
Buried deep underground, in total darkness where no living person was ever meant to see them again.
Exactly. That's what's so powerful. The absolute best craftsmanship, the most significant royal imagery, was placed in the most inaccessible parts of the tomb.
It wasn't for show, not for the living.
Not at all. It was purely functional in their belief system. It was to ensure the king could perpetually enact these rituals, ensuring his rebirth and eternal reign in the afterlife. It speaks volumes about their focus on eternity.
It really makes you stop and think. The effort, the artistry, all for the unseen journey. So the pyramid, incredible as it is, was just one part of something even bigger.
Absolutely. The step pyramid was the stunning centerpiece, yes, but it sat within this enormous funerary complex at Saqqara. It wasn't just a tomb, it was essentially a city for the dead.
A city for the dead.
Yeah.
Covering how much area?
About 40 acres or 16 hectares. It's huge. The whole complex was designed to work together to ensure Djoser's successful transition to the afterlife and his eternal existence.
And the goal was for him to join the stars.
That seems to have been a core belief, especially at this early period. The imperishable stars, the circumpolar stars in the north that never set. The complex was oriented to facilitate his journey there, allowing him to be reborn eternally among them.
Just to give a sense of scale, how big was 40 acres back then?
It was enormous. Comparisons suggest the complex was about 2.5 times the size of Hierakonpolis, which was a major important town in the Old Kingdom. So this was a colossal undertaking.
Mind-blowing scale. And the architecture within the complex, it mirrored the pyramid's innovation.
In a way, yes, but also looked back. Take the enclosure wall surrounding the entire complex.
Okay.
It was massive, over 10 meters high, nearly 34 feet, and stretched for more than 1.6 kilometers, almost a mile around, built from stone, of course. But it was meticulously designed to look like the niched mud brick walls of earlier royal palaces or fortresses. It had something like 1,680 of these carved niches, imitation in stone.
Again, translating older forms into this new permanent material were their gates.
14 large bastions that looked like gates, but they were nearly all false doors. Symbolic entrances and exits, perhaps for the king's ka, his spirit or life force. There was only one actual entrance for the living.
Just one way in. That must have been incredibly imposing.
A real statement of controlled access, definitely. And inside that wall, every element had meaning. Like the Great Trench.
The quarry pit we mentioned.
Yes, that huge trench, 750 meters long, 40 meters wide, encircling most of the complex. Its shape on the ground actually resembles the hieroglyph for a state or domain. Some think it might have been symbolically meant for the spirits of Djoser's court, allowing them to reside there and serve him in death.
Wow. Okay, so you go through the one real entrance.
And you enter the entrance colonnade, absolutely breathtaking, a long passage flanked by 40 tall limestone columns.
The ones carved like reeds.
Exactly. Nearly 6 meters high, sculpted to look just like bundled papyrus reeds, an architectural marvel. And it's here, in a small room off this colony, the vestibule, that they found the base of a statue of Djoser.
With his name.
With his name, Negereket. And crucially, the name and titles of Imhotep, a direct link preserved in stone.
Acknowledging the master architect right at the entrance. Cool. Where does the colonnade lead?
It opens into the vast south court, a huge open ceremonial space. It has these strange curved stone markers set into the ground.
Markers for what?
The thinking is they represent territorial boundary markers, like the ones used in the Hebsed festival. So, this court allowed Djoser to eternally perform the ritual running part of the Jubilee, reaffirming his dominion over all of Egypt in the afterlife.
Performing the Hebsed forever.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's another tomb structure nearby, the South Tomb.
Yes. Distinct from the main pyramid, there's the South Tomb. Smaller, kind of a satellite tomb. Its exact purpose is debated. Maybe it held the king's ka or his canopic jars with his organs, or maybe it was purely symbolic.
And inside, more decorations.
Yes. And intriguingly, its underground chambers, also decorated with those blue faience tiles mimicking reed mats and the palace facade reliefs, are actually more complete, better preserved than the ones under the main pyramid.
Really? Huh. Any idea why?
Hard to say for sure. Maybe work stopped earlier on the main pyramid's chambers, or perhaps the South Tomb was finished first. But it gives us an amazing glimpse of the intended decoration. Exquisite reliefs of the king running the Hebsed course.
Again, hidden away.
Yeah.
Incredible. What else was in the complex?
Moving to the north side of the step pyramid, you find the North Temple, sometimes called the Mortuary Temple, and the Serdab Court.
And this side faces north for a reason.
Precisely. Facing the northern sky, towards those imperishable circumpolar stars, a clear reflection of the religious focus of the time, the king's ascent to the heavens.
So the North Temple was for rituals.
Yes. This is where the daily offerings and rituals for the deceased king would have been performed by priests, keeping his spirit sustained.
And the Serdab, what's that?
The Serdab is a small, completely enclosed chamber attached to the temple. Inside it was placed the king's ka statue, a life-size statue representing his spirit.
Completely enclosed, how could it participate?
That's the clever part. There were 2 small holes drilled through the wall of the Serdab at eye level, looking out into the temple courtyard, so the ka residing in the statue could look out and witness the rituals being performed in its honor, receive the scent of incense and offerings, a connection between the spirit world and the world of the living.
That's ingenious, linking the statue to the ongoing ceremonies.
And nearby was the Hebsed Court, a large rectangular courtyard specifically designed for the eternal performance of the Jubilee Festival.
How was it designed for that?
It was lined with dummy chapels, solid structures representing the shrines of the gods of Upper and Lower Egypt. Different architectural styles, mimicking provincial shrines. There were platforms for the dual thrones used in the coronation part of the Hebsed. The whole space was a permanent stage set for Djoser's eternal ritual.
So the entire complex wasn't just a burial place, it was an engine for eternity, meticulously designed.
Exactly. A machine for ensuring the king's rebirth and everlasting reign among the gods.
So pulling it all together, what's the big takeaway? Djoser's enduring legacy.
Well, the Step Pyramid complex was undeniably a crucial turning point, a massive pivot in Egyptian history and architecture.
How so?
It directly paved the way for everything that followed. It was the prototype. The smooth-sided pyramids of the Fourth Dynasty, like at Giza, evolved directly from this first experiment in stone. It established the fundamental blueprint for royal funerary complexes for, well, millennia to come.
It set the standard, and it reinforced the pharaoh's role.
Absolutely. It visually and conceptually solidified the pharaoh's divine status, physically linking his power on earth to his eternal destiny among the stars. It's hard to overstate its impact on Egyptian ideology and kingship.
And is the story finished? Are we still learning about it?
Oh, definitely not finished. Saqqara, the site, is vast and complex. Excavations are ongoing and discoveries are still being made. The complex just reopened in March 2020 after a huge 14-year restoration project.
So there's still secrets to uncover.
For sure. Even the precise original meaning intended by Imhotep and Djoser, was it a stairway to heaven? A symbol of the primeval mount of creation? A representation of the crown? These are things scholars still actively debate.
But whatever the exact intention, its power is undeniable.
Undeniable. This first stone giant, Djoser's Step Pyramid, stands as this incredible, enduring symbol of ancient Egyptian ingenuity, ambition, and that profound, unwavering quest for immortality. Whatever else Djoser did, this monument guarantees we remember him.
So we've journeyed back to see the dawn of the stone giants, exploring Djoser's revolutionary reign, the genius of Imhotep, the mind-bending architecture of the Step Pyramid, and this whole sprawling complex built for eternity.
It really is an amazing story of innovation and belief, which kind of leaves you wondering, doesn't it?
Wondering what?
Well, when you consider the sheer audacity of Djoser's vision and the incredible leap in engineering Imhotep achieved, what does this 4,700-year-old structure teach us today about, the power of human belief, the drive to push boundaries, to build something lasting, even when facing something as certain as death?
That's a powerful thought. Defying limits, driven by belief. It makes you think what other ancient innovations, maybe less obvious than a giant pyramid, might have fundamentally shaped our world in ways we don't even realize.
Exactly. There's always more to uncover.
Keep exploring, keep questioning. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.